I'm making a life-size Dr. Doom bust. It's slowly falling apart, but we're going to be talking about the helmet, the cape, and printing out the entire thing. So let's talk about it. Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Luke, and in this video we are going to be going through making part 1 of a life-size Dr. Doom bust. So this is going to be part 1 of probably about 4 different videos. So in this video we're going to be going through what 3D files we're using and sort of the rough outline and assembly of the piece. We're going to be going through our cape that we're fully sewing ourselves, and then we're going through modifying some of the STL files just to make things, well, a little bit easier to make. And the other thing we're going to be talking about in this video is an arm detail that, well, is a little bit of a surprise. So without further ado, let's go and find what 3D files we need to be using for this and have a look at the reference images from the 2007 Silver Surfer. So the files we're going to be using are from this channel sponsor, DO3D. Okay, so because we're making a life-size bust of Dr. Doom, we are going to need a suit. Now, there are a couple of different options. Obviously, what I do is maybe going to be slightly different to the other variants of suits we are going to be looking at, but they're all going to basically work the same in principle because it's by the same modeler. So the main one we are going to be using is this one here. Now, this variant and this variant are the exact same file. The only thing that is different is the helmet. Now, the reason I'm going with this one is because I've already printed that helmet and made it. Now, if you are interested in watching how I make that whole helmet, I'll leave a link down in the description where you can watch how to make that entire helmet. It's very easy, that one. So for these files, I'm going to be actually making my suit based around the 2007 Silver Surfer Dr. Doom suit. Now, before we look at these files, I'm just going to show you this. Now, this is the actual hero suit that they wore in the films back in 2007. This was up for auction back in 2016, so nearly 10 years ago. And, well, that's going to be my reference image to actually making this thing. And as you can see, when you compare from this to this, there is a lot more parts on this Dr. Doom suit by DO3D than the actual suit actually has. So we're going to be doing, well, cutting some corners and not printing everything. Now, because we're doing the bust, we don't have to worry about these forearms. We don't have to worry about the legs, shins, or anything. We've printed our helmet. And I'm going to talk about these arm sleeves in a second. But basically, we are going to be printing this ab plate, this other ab plate, then these two side pieces, this piece, the chest pieces, the top two shoulders, and these little detail pieces. And they correspond to this lower ab, the two side fins, this middle ab, the two chest plates, the two shoulders, and the two little detail pieces. Obviously, you haven't made the helmet, print the whole helmet and resin print all of its details. We're not going to be worrying about absolutely anything else. And because I'm really only making this as a display bust, I don't really want to wear this at all. We are not going to be printing out the back, which for the files, they consist of part 1, 2, the lower, and this piece. So those pieces just there. I don't really feel like printing them all at all. And seeing we've got a huge cape to go over the back, we don't need to worry. So we're going to just FDM all of these, but before we start printing absolutely everything, we just do need to modify one file, which are these little detail pieces. So we're just going to jump over into Mesh Mixer. So we're editing this little detail piece, which are these two pieces on our fully printed chest plate. Now, the little thing is that, well, it only really sits into this piece, and I didn't have a way to attach this shoulder piece to the main chest plate. So I came up with an idea. I'm basically going to extend this little knob at the back far enough through this and through the chest plate and out to the back that we can put through a little clip. That way this is still removable when we go to paint it, but it's also really easy to change, and it's really easy to assemble it. We don't need to worry about glue or elastic. We're going to be pushing this out by 12 mil onto this additional piece. And that way we can push it through like this, and then we're going to be drilling a 3 mil hole just with a drill. I'm not too worried about doing it in the software. That way I can just make it exactly where I want to in the chest plate, because each chest plate is going to sort of variate between whatever's printed. And then we're going to be putting in one of these. Now, you may have seen these sorts of clips before. They're called arc clips. Now, they're just weird little ones. You mostly will see these on tow hitches of trailers or floats, all those sorts of things. But I just bought a really cheap pack over on Amazon. You've got big ones, and then you've got the small teeny tiny ones. So for the clips that we're going to be using, you can probably find these on Amazon, but I'm going to be using a 2 by 30 mil. So I believe that's 2 mils in diameter there, and then 30 mil wherever. I'm not too sure. 2x30 RG and R clip. Yeah, one of them. We will need to actually split this apart just because the little knob at the end here is relatively wide. It's not going to fit around one of these, but that's all right. I just grabbed a pair of pliers, pulled it apart, slid it through, and crimped it back. But that way it makes it really easy. We just pull the clip out when we need to, and we can remove this whole piece. I have also added a strip of Velcro just behind each of these panels here as well. Just, God, break it. And just so that it's got that little bit of support and, well, it locks exactly where I want it. These things also just keep everything in. Enough explaining that, let's actually edit this thing. So we're going to import it into Mesh Mixer. We're going to go over to the side here, and we're just going to drag and drop a cylinder on the top. Now we're just going to take this middle ball, this is what moves it around, and this little triangle on the end expands it and contracts it. So we're just going to try our best to absolutely line this up into the middle. Something a little bit like this. Just take your time with this. There's no rush. Cool. I'm happy with that. It doesn't actually have to be spot on. Mine isn't. But that way, it just sort of is uniform around the outside. There's no two huge big gaps. The one thing you don't want is it overhanging. That way we're not going to be able to put the pin through. So make sure it's a little bit smaller than the actual piece. Now if you go over here, you can see the offset, and this is just offsetting it on the plane that we had it. So at 0, it's just evenly split through the middle. Whereas if we pull it to one side, it pushes it out, and we pull it to the other, it contracts it back into model. So we're just going to roughly have a little bit into the model and a little bit out. And something like that looks, well, pretty good. So we're just going to append to mesh and click accept. And that is it. That is the full piece. We're going to export that and print it. Once we get it, we're just going to feed it through the plate and the chest plate. I just made a little pen marking around the outside, took a 3mm drill bit and drilled it straight through, and then put our archetype connector in it. It's really, really simple, and it gives us so much more variety in actually assembling this thing. Alright, so that is pretty much everything printed. The last thing I am going to talk about though is going to be our mannequin. Now basically, because I am not wearing this, I need a mannequin to make it on. I was originally going to try and make it out of duct tape and the expanding foam, but that just failed miserably. So I had a look on Amazon and, well, found this. This is just a life-size male bust of a mannequin that also just has a coat hanger on the top as well, which we're going to be ripping out and we'll talk about because I've got to still think of a way we're going to be attaching a head to this. We'll probably 3D print a head just because why not? But it fits my measurements pretty much down to a T nearly. And that way we kind of get a bit of the legs. This will be, we'll talk about that later when we actually get this. On covering the thighs, we might even cut them, we might do a base plate, but it gives us a little bit of flexibility within the leg. But this is how we're going to be actually displaying the chest plate and the cape and everything once we are done. So if you want to pick one of these up, just go onto Amazon, search a mannequin body, and you'll find one. Now the very, very, very last thing that I'm going to talk about is our cape. Now for this cape, I have actually made this to fit me, and it is as long and as tall as me. So we've still got to actually cut this cape, but this is, I'm pretty happy with it. I have to still overlock it. We haven't yet overlocked anything just because I don't want to overlock it and then have to do extra stitches and cut stuff differently. So we're leaving the overlocking till last. That's why there's still a bunch of pins through this. But we've got our huge hood. We've got the left panel, the front left panel, we've got the right panel and the front right panel, and then the hood parts 1 and 2, and it's just all stitched together. Now for this, I didn't make these patterns. I have a link down in the description. I can't 100% remember off the top of my head whose these ones are. I found them at the local craft store and they are worldwide used, so I'll leave a link down in the description of which ones I actually used. These templates were really, really easy. You can print them out, or I just bought the ones that were already printed onto the tissue paper and just followed the steps. And I also just watched a YouTube tutorial because it got a little bit confusing at one point. And, well, I'm pretty happy. I don't really sew heaps and heaps and heaps, but damn, I think I nailed that seam between the middle. So, as you can see, when we actually decide to wear this, if you can actually see me in the shot, it looks pretty good. So, I'm happy with this. I think I've got a little bit of an overhang here. I might end up cutting it, but I still sort of like having that folded in edge. We will probably overlock this and finish it off later once we've actually got our chest plate on the stand. And that way I can just sort of put things in, pin it differently and see how I like it to sit. As for the material, it's pretty heavy duty weighted stuff. I'll find exactly what I used and I'll leave it down in the description because I can't actually remember what material it is. It is relatively thick. I believe it is sort of like a canvas nearly, but it's not. I'll find out. It'll be in the description of what material I used. And then for the stitching, it's just black stitching or green stitching. Doesn't really matter. But that is pretty much it. So the next thing we're going to talk about is what we're sort of assembling the pieces with and how it's sort of all going to. All right. So there is one more thing that I want to talk about, and that is going to be our arm. Now this is the one that I said we're going to be talking about. Now obviously this is the image, the full one that we see in the film. And you can see obviously with our DO3D, as we did in the files, you'll notice that it had biceps, it had shoulders, it had very big forearms and the gloves. Although, because we're doing the bust closest to the film, well, it doesn't really need a shoulder as such and a bicep. So that's where I've gotten DO3D to model up this. Now this is actually a full long arm because I will eventually do this in silicone if I decide to wear it, like I've said. But I'm just went into Mesh Mixer and have cut off a plane. Now I've still yet to print the other shoulder or the other arm, but essentially I can wear this. I have scaled it down just to make it fit slightly better. I can shimmy it on within reason, but basically this is what is going to be sanded and painted in black, and that's what's going to sort of give the suit, well, an arm. As you can see, if we try and shimmy this on, I'll try and not talk much to the mic, but you can see it sort of fits and it looks, I think, relatively good. Now at the moment these files are not commercially available, but I am getting DO3D. They're going to be finishing up some little tiny bits and pieces, and this arm will actually be available to purchase on their website, which I'll probably talk about when they do actually upload it. So that way you can sort of make this suit and its arm if you choose. But essentially I have just taken the file that they made me of a full arm, cut a little piece off, then I've printed this side. I'm yet to print my right. These will be sanded and prepped and stuff, and it'll be painted in a flat black. Once we get our mannequin, we'll shimmy it on and glue it into place and it'll look perfect. And that's going to be our filler for our arms. So I'm really happy with how these are looking at the moment. They're really comfortable to actually wear. I didn't really think they would be, but it's also got plenty of detail and it's nice that it's going to be flat black. We don't have to worry about an overly complex paint job. So that's pretty much it for the arm. Let's talk about the rest of the thing. All right, so I'm just going to go through basically what is going to be a part of the full bust. Now, obviously we have ordered that bust on Amazon, so it should be getting here relatively soon. I'll be putting updates on my Instagram, so go and definitely check that out. As for the helmet, this is the one we are going to be using. This is the Doctor Doom that I made a little bit earlier in this year. Now, if you are interested in knowing how to make that, I will leave it down in the description where you can watch that whole YouTube tutorial, start to finish, with the blue details and the chrome and everything. We are going to be weathering this, but that'll be obviously during our weathering stage with the whole suit later on. On from that, I did also just order a black morph suit as well. So this will be our black undersuit that will go onto the bust. Now I have cut the hands off. I'll be cutting off bits and pieces of the undersuit so we can just sort of strap it onto the mannequin and we'll stitch it or glue it onto the rest of it, just so that it's a black underbody frame. Just so if there's any gaps, it's not white, it's black. Looks better. Onto that is obviously the cape that we sewed. Obviously this thing is ginormous at the moment. It is to fit me. I'm waiting till obviously we get that bust, and then we'll cut it down and we'll finish off our overlocking. I am also still playing around with our Velcro straps to attach to our shoulders on the chest plate. And obviously last but not least is our chest plate. With all the panels, at the moment it's all obviously is one piece, which we will disassemble, paint, and then reassemble. Now, like I said, we're not going to be printing out that back because, well, we've got the cape on. There's no need, and I'm not too worried at all. I also just want to try and make this. I'm not too worried about the rest of it. So basically, the way that we're attaching absolutely everything is obviously with DO3D, we've got these pieces around here that have all got that screw accessibility, but they obviously made this lower ab and the middle ab well separated so you can go and get a bit of movement. But seeing that ours is going to be on the bust, we do get a little bit of creative freedom. Now at the moment, yes, it has been taped. The tape will be elastic. I'm just not going to glue and ruin the elastic before we've actually painted everything. That'll be during our final assembly sort of steps. So where there's tape, there will be elastic in the final product. But I've also do have these elastic with the clips as well, just to give us a little bit of movement, and we can unclip them if need be. But basically we'll have some very relatively thick elastic. We'll talk about that when we actually get to assembling the final bits. But we're going to put a piece here and here. That's going to keep these two panels aligned and also give us a little bit of movement like this. Then we're going to have some just in the middle, just so that we don't get like a bit of a gap underneath the abs and the top ab plate. And then we might even put some just on the sides just to hold things together. We'll see how we go in the end. And obviously we've got our R-Tile type clips from the modified files that we've done. And we've also got the top Velcro that is going to cross over onto our cape. So that's pretty much the full assembly of this piece. I'm really happy with how everything's sort of just sitting and aligning at the moment. Obviously it's not the final product, but I'm still very happy with it at the moment. We'll go over any of those sorts of back pieces or some other sort of stuff in the next episodes. But at the moment, I don't think we need to do that back at all. We'll eventually get to all of the weathering and the painting, which will be next episode, which I'm super excited for. And obviously the helmet's all done, so we're clear on that. I really want to add some LEDs, but I don't think I will, just because it's not 100% movie accurate. If it was, we're adding LEDs. I might end up adding some sound effects as well, just because of the bust, why not? But that will be in our very final episodes. So thank you so much guys for watching this video. I hope you enjoy and are excited for the rest of this series coming along. This will either be a 3 to 4 part series. The next one will be doing all of the prep work and the painting. Then probably the third episode will be doing any more fitments and fitting it to our mannequin, so on. And the fourth will be doing our weathering and the final sweep over everything. So thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you all next week with whatever build I decide to come up with. But other than that, I will see you all next week.